There is a version of you that most people will never get to see, a version that does not react, does not chase, does not explain itself, does not need validation, approval, or anyone's understanding. A version that is so rooted in itself that nothing from the outside can move it. The Stoics had a word for this state: apatheia. Not apathy, not indifference, but a complete freedom from being controlled by external events, other people's opinions, or the chaos of the world around you. When you reach this state, something remarkable happens. The people who ignored you start to notice you. The ones who took you for granted start to question their decision. The world begins to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you stopped needing it. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you become unreachable, and the 13 Stoic principles that will take you there. Write in the comments right now, "I am becoming unreachable." Make it real before this video is over. Lesson 1. You stop being affected and you start being respected. There is a direct relationship between how easily you are affected by things and how much respect you receive from the world around you. When people see that their words can hurt you, their actions can destabilize you, and their opinions can change how you feel about yourself, they unconsciously register you as someone who can be moved, someone whose state depends on what happens around them. The Stoics called this being a slave to externals, and they considered it the opposite of freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the first step toward inner freedom is realizing that nothing outside you has the power to disturb your mind without your permission. Nothing. Not an insult, not a rejection, not a failure, not the worst thing someone could say about you. When you internalize this completely, when you stop reacting and start observing, people feel it. They cannot quite name it, but they sense that something has shifted, that you are operating from a different place than most people. And that shift commands a kind of respect that no achievement, no status, and no amount of trying to impress people ever could. Lesson 2. Your absence becomes more powerful than your presence ever was. Most people try to be more present to get more attention. They post more, talk more, reach out more, make themselves more available. The Stoics took the opposite approach. When you become truly unreachable, when you stop filling every silence with words, stop responding to every provocation, stop making yourself constantly available to people who do not value your time, something unexpected happens. Your absence starts to speak louder than your presence ever did. Seneca wrote that we should be selective about what we give our attention to, because attention is the currency of the soul. When you spend it carelessly on everyone and everything, it loses its value. But when you become selective, when people realize that your time and presence are not automatically available, they become something people want to earn. The moment you stop chasing attention is the moment you start receiving it. Lesson 3. You become impossible to manipulate. Manipulation works through one mechanism. It finds what you need, what you fear, or what you desperately want, and it uses that against you. The person who needs approval can be manipulated through withdrawal of approval. The person who fears being alone can be manipulated through the threat of abandonment. The person who desperately wants to be understood can be manipulated through the promise of understanding. The Stoics spent their entire philosophical lives dismantling these vulnerabilities, not by becoming cold or closed, but by becoming complete. Epictetus taught that the path to freedom is simple, but not easy. Stop wanting things you cannot control. Stop fearing things that are not truly dangerous. Stop needing things from other people that you can only give yourself. When you have done this work, there is nothing left to manipulate. No lever anyone can pull. No button anyone can push. You become, in the deepest sense, free. And that freedom is something that genuinely unsettles people who were used to having power over you. Lesson 4. The right people find you, the wrong ones fade. When you are constantly available, constantly seeking connection, constantly adjusting yourself to fit what you think others want from you, you attract a certain kind of relationship, one built on your neediness rather than your value. When you become unreachable, something shifts in the quality of the people who enter your life. The ones who were drawn to you because they could control you, because you needed their approval, because you were easy to take advantage of, those people drift away. They find someone else who will give them what they were taking from you. And the space they leave does not stay empty for long. Marcus Aurelius wrote that like attracts like. When you operate from a place of strength, clarity, and genuine self-possession, you begin to attract people who operate from the same place. People who are interested in who you actually are, not what they can get from you. Becoming unreachable is not about closing yourself off from the world. It is about raising the standard for what you allow into your life. Lesson 5. You discover who you actually are. Most people have never spent enough time with themselves to know who they actually are, separate from the roles they play, the relationships they maintain, and the opinions of the people around them. They know who they are as a partner, as a parent, as an employee, as a friend. But strip all of that away, and they find an unfamiliar silence that makes them deeply uncomfortable. The Stoics considered this self-knowledge to be the foundation of everything. Marcus Aurelius began every day with self-examination. Epictetus taught that the unexamined life produces a person who is at the mercy of every external force because they have no inner anchor. When you become unreachable, when you create genuine space between yourself and the constant noise of other people's needs and opinions, you begin to hear something you may have never heard clearly before: your own voice, your own values, your own sense of what matters and what does not. That clarity is not just personally valuable, it is the thing that makes you magnetic to others, because there is nothing more compelling than a person who genuinely knows who they are and is completely at peace with it. Lesson 6. Your decisions become cleaner and faster. One of the most underappreciated costs of being constantly available, constantly reactive, constantly enmeshed in other people's drama and needs is what it does to your decision-making. When your mind is always occupied by what someone said, how someone reacted, what someone thinks of you, there is very little cognitive space left for clear thinking. Your decisions get clouded by emotion, by the desire to please, by the fear of disapproval. The Stoics called this state of mental clarity hegemonikon, the governing faculty operating at full capacity. And they believed it was only possible when you had achieved a certain level of detachment from external noise. When you become unreachable, your mind clears. The decisions that used to paralyze you become obvious. The situations that used to confuse you reveal themselves with startling clarity. You stop making decisions based on what others will think and start making them based on what is actually true, actually right, and actually aligned with who you are. That shift in decision-making quality compounds over time into a completely different life. Lesson 7. You stop performing and start living. Most people are performing their life rather than living it. They perform confidence they do not feel. They perform happiness for social media. They perform success for people they barely like. They perform versions of themselves that they think will be accepted, admired, or desired. The Stoics considered this performance to be one of the greatest wastes of human energy, because every bit of energy you spend managing your image is energy you are not spending on actually becoming the person you want to be. Epictetus said that it is impossible to begin to learn something you think you already know, and when you are performing a version of yourself, you are constantly pretending to already be what you are still becoming, which makes genuine growth almost impossible. When you become unreachable, when you stop caring about the performance, something uncomfortable and liberating happens simultaneously. You are left with only what is real, only who you actually are. And that is the only foundation from which a genuine life can be built. Lesson 8. You become someone people think about. There is a paradox at the heart of human attention. The people we think about most are rarely the ones who are constantly in front of us, constantly available, constantly seeking our attention. They are the ones who are not. The ones who are fully absorbed in their own life. The ones who do not need us. The ones who are genuinely unreachable. This is not a manipulation tactic. It is not a game you play to make people miss you. It is a natural consequence of becoming someone who is genuinely focused on their own growth, their own work, their own becoming. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the person who is deeply engaged with their own inner work has very little time for the shallow concerns of social performance, and paradoxically, that person becomes far more interesting to others than someone who is constantly performing for their attention. When you are unreachable, you create a mystery, not an artificial one, a real one, because you are actually somewhere else, doing something that matters, becoming someone worth thinking about. Lesson 9. You stop fearing loss. Fear of loss is one of the most powerful forces that keeps people from becoming who they are capable of being. Fear of losing a relationship keeps people in situations that diminish them. Fear of losing approval keeps people from expressing their true opinions. Fear of losing comfort keeps people from taking the risks that could transform their lives. The Stoics addressed this fear directly and without sentimentality. They practiced negative visualization, regularly imagining the loss of everything they valued, not to become sad, but to become free. Because when you have genuinely sat with the idea of losing something and made peace with it, that thing no longer has power over you. You can appreciate it fully without being controlled by the fear of losing it. When you become unreachable, you have done this work. You know that you can survive the loss of approval, of relationships, of comfort, of familiar patterns. You have already let go of your need for those things to define you. And the person who does not fear loss cannot be controlled by the threat of it. Lesson 10. Your standards rise naturally. Something interesting happens when you stop accepting less than you deserve. It does not just change what you tolerate from other people, it changes what you tolerate from yourself. When you become unreachable to disrespect, to manipulation, to situations that drain you, you begin to apply that same standard internally. You stop tolerating your own excuses, your own procrastination, your own small compromises with what you know is right. The Stoics called this the virtuous cycle of self-improvement, because the inner work and the outer work are not separate. They are the same work. Epictetus taught that you cannot expect more from others than you expect from yourself. And conversely, as you raise your standards for yourself, you naturally raise them for what you accept from the world around you. Becoming unreachable is not just a social stance. It is a commitment to a higher standard of living, thinking, and being, one that elevates every area of your life simultaneously. Lesson 11. Time becomes your greatest asset. When you are constantly available, constantly reactive, constantly at the disposal of other people's needs and demands, time is something that happens to you. It moves past you while you are busy being what everyone else needs you to be. When you become unreachable, time transforms into something different. It becomes a resource you control, a space you shape deliberately, a canvas you fill with the work that actually matters to you. Seneca's most famous work is a letter called On the Shortness of Life, and his central argument is not that life is short, it is that we make it short by spending it on things that do not belong to us. The person who reclaims their time by becoming unreachable to what drains it is the person who suddenly discovers that life is not short at all, that there is more than enough time to build something meaningful, to become someone extraordinary, to live in a way that will matter when you look back. Guard your time like the most precious thing you own, because it is the only thing that, once spent, can never be recovered. Lesson 12. You become a source rather than a drain. There are two kinds of people in every room: those who take energy from the people around them, who need constant validation, constant attention, constant reassurance that they are okay, that they are liked, that they are enough. And those who bring energy, who are so full, so grounded, so genuinely at peace with themselves that simply being around them makes other people feel more capable, more calm, more alive. The Stoics were obsessed with becoming the second kind of person, not for the benefit of others, though that was a natural consequence, but because they understood that a person who is constantly draining energy from the world around them has failed at the most fundamental Stoic task, the task of becoming sufficient unto themselves. When you become unreachable, when you stop needing things from others to feel complete, you stop draining and start giving, not because you are trying to give, but because you are so full that it overflows naturally. That is when your presence becomes genuinely valuable to the people in your life. Lesson 13. You realize this was always available to you. This is the final lesson, and in some ways, the most important one. Everything we have talked about in this video, the freedom from reaction, the inner calm, the self-possession, the ability to walk away, the clarity, the standards, the peace, none of it requires anything from the outside world. It does not require a certain income, a certain relationship status, a certain level of achievement, or a certain set of circumstances. It requires only one thing: a decision. The Stoics were radical in their insistence on this point. Epictetus, who owned nothing and had his freedom taken from him, was one of the freest men who ever lived. Because freedom, real freedom, has never been about what you have or what happens to you. It has always been about what you choose. You can choose right now, in this moment, to begin becoming unreachable, not all at once, but in one small way today, one boundary held, one reaction released, one moment of choosing your peace over someone else's chaos. That is how it starts, and once it starts, it does not stop. That is the ViaStoica, the Stoic path, and it has been waiting for you all along. If this video spoke to something in you, subscribe to ViaStoica. Every week, we go deeper into the ancient wisdom that actually changes lives. And write in the comments the one area of your life where you are ready to become unreachable. I read every single comment. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, 2,000 years ago. Still true today. See you on the path.